Hey guys, welcome to the Live, Train, Perform podcast. I'm your host, Shaun. Now, the structure of the episodes this week is going to be a little bit different to what I have been running over the last couple of months, and that is because I'm going to be interviewing my man, Jamie O'Donnell, of the Life Livers Academy podcast, and I was a guest on his show back when lockdown kicked off in late March, early April, so I'm going to be rebroadcasting that episode today. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be interviewing him. That episode's going to drop. And we're going to be discussing many things, including mindset, resilience, facing adversity, and all of the lessons that he's learned through the life that he's built for himself. Let's get started.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Life Livers Academy. I'm Jamie O'Donnell, and the purpose of this podcast is to connect you with the people, ideas, mindsets, and inspiration to empower you to chase your dreams, unlock your potential, and live life to the fullest each day. Get ready for some inspiring conversations and incredible insights from people who are out there living life, having fun, and dominating their chosen path. I appreciate you tuning in. Now let's get this episode underway. Rightio. It's my pleasure to welcome my guest on today, Shaun. Shaun's got a extensive background. He has represented Australia in rugby through the Australian Defence Force side. He was in the military, who served in Afghanistan as a military sniper, being deployed multiple times. During that time, he actually was awarded the Commendation for Gallantry, which is a pretty special award that's not given to many. As far as I understand it, there's only 68 people across the Australian Defence Force who have received that level of honour, and that represents acts of great heroism on the battlefield. He is a decorated man when it comes to his military career, but he is now in a different phase of his career where he works as the head strength and conditioning coach at Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand. He is the owner of Performance Functional Training. He is an NLP practitioner, Swiss 8 ambassador, nutritional therapist. He's coached many world-class athletes and currently works with a long list of current UFC stars. I'm excited to dive into this one. He's a good friend of mine. Shaun, it's good to have you on, bro. How you doing?
Mate, I'm good. How am I supposed to step up to those standards, bro?
Oh, mate, I was nervous just reading the intro. I had to get it right. No, man. Yeah. Hey, I really appreciate your time, and I'm really interested to chat to you. Obviously, we met in Phuket through training, and I was always really impressed with your professionalism and the way that you went about things. I didn't know too much about your background probably until I got back to New Zealand, and obviously I followed you online, and we've become friends over that time. But there's so much to your story that I'm interested to dive into, and I think in the current circumstances with COVID-19. The way the world is, half the world or more is in lockdown. People are struggling. There's a lot of stress and anxiety. I think your mindset, skill set, a lot of your experience is going to be very valuable for people, man.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I honestly think that there's going to be, anxiety and depression were already on the rise over the last 10 to 15 years or so. And I think that that's only going to explode in the next couple of months when, you got to think, man, how many people have no purpose outside of work. Once they lose their work, then they've got nothing else to do. Like they lose their purpose, their drive, their self-identity. This is where people need to have a look at their values and start thinking about and have an honest conversation about what they actually find valuable.
Hey, I couldn't agree with you more. I haven't actually thought about that purpose outside of work during this particular time, but that's a fascinating point because you're exactly right. I've spoken to people on both sides of that equation. Like in the last couple of weeks, I've had people who have had to pivot their businesses and are more busy than ever trying to, find a new angle to take online. And they're like thriving, even though things are stressful. They've got so much purpose throughout their day. And then on the opposite side of that, I know people who are sitting around and are like, all right, so it's 2:00. What are we having for dinner? And people are struggling when they've got nothing to do.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, mate, we were just talking about the mindset book that you've got sitting next to you. I've read that book a couple of times. It's a brilliant book, and it goes into the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And I think that pretty much sums up, where people are at right now. You're either thriving or you're surviving.
100%. let's talk about that, because I'm halfway through reading this currently, and so far it's already like growth mindset is something that I understood. I think it's a concept that people understand, but it's harder to actually embody. And I think a lot of the time, even in my own experience in the past, I have wanted to have a growth mindset. And when challenges have been thrown at me, I know how I should react to it, but I still haven't truly appreciated what's going on in the moment. I think it's been fascinating to look at business owners in particular over the last couple of weeks. One thing that I've seen that's just completely hamstrung people is that when people think that their skill set is their skill set and their current situation is their current situation, man, they've lost all hope already. Whereas someone else out there is looking at it and going, all right, I need to learn these skills. I need to do this. There's opportunity here. I don't know how to do that yet, but I'm going to go and take that on. And so that's what you're saying, right? It's like that mindset's hugely important at the moment.
Yeah, definitely, man. And again, it goes back to what I was saying before about identifying what your values are and having an honest conversation with the person in the mirror and going, right, what do you actually value right now? And for every person's going to be different. You know, for me, my values right now are maintaining health and maintaining a strong immune system. So I'm doing everything that I can to maintain that, and that's those values are going to then determine the structure and the routine that I put throughout my day. So I'll literally get up in the morning and I'll go through my morning routine and I'll schedule in the things that are important to me. So for me, like I said, my values are maintaining a strong and healthy immune system. So I'm making sure I'm eating good food. I'm doing some meditation. I'm getting some exercise in, but also growth and development is very important to me. So I'm also working on a podcast at the moment. So I schedule in some time to do that, create some content. I've got a YouTube channel, which I'm creating content for. I'm also doing a podcast course. I just don't know anything about podcasting, so I'm figuring shit out as I go. But, I'm putting one foot in front of the other and I'm just cracking on, man, just getting it done, learning the podcast tools along the way. And I'm also diving back into my coaching philosophy and training philosophy and doing a course on anatomy and physiology. So, I've got a lot of things going on that, at the end of the day, once these restrictions are lifted and we go back to normal life, so to speak, then I've upskilled and I've used the time wisely to add to my current skill set.
Yeah, something that really stood out for me, we were exchanging messages a couple of weeks ago and you said you're either going to come out of this better with a new skill set, a better body, or you're going to come out of this in a worse situation. And I had the same thinking at the time, but it was so refreshing to hear someone say that, because a lot of people were in panic mode, and I was like, you know what, this is such a fantastic time to double down. We're both launching a podcast during this time, which is ironic. Been reading and doing stuff. How much is your daily routine, Jay? You're a man of routine anyway. I noticed that when we were in Thailand and we got to see you. You're very strict with yourself. You're very disciplined. That, I take it, that comes from the military. But how different is daily life for you at the moment anyway? You're a pretty routine guy.
To be honest, mate, it's not too much different, other than I don't really have to leave the house and go to work. And this is the thing. This is where the people that are going to thrive and get through this the best are those that had that structure and that routine in their life, and they had that structure and purpose, and they knew what their self identity was, and they knew what brought them value and made them a better person. So. If you don't have those things in your life and then all of a sudden you lose your job and you're stuck at home, you can't see all your friends and your family, then, like I said, that's a massive hit to your ego, your personality, and who you are as a person. So, I think the people that will struggle to get through this are those that haven't changed gears, that haven't changed direction, and had a look at what their values and purpose are, and put the processes in place to allow them to be the best person.
How grateful are you for the lessons that you learned during your time in the military at the moment? Because you guys faced adversity every day, faced fear and uncertainty all the time, and a lot of self-isolation and time on your own anyway. So surely a lot of those lessons that are quite natural to you now, and those mindsets and ways of thinking are paying off in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think the overarching concept there is to realize what you can control and what you can't control. And if you're focusing on the things that you can't control, then you're going to put yourself in a bad headspace. So you can only focus on you and what's within your control. So this is where, again, looking at your values and identifying those processes that need to be put into place so that you can be your best. When I would go out, I would go out bush for, 2 months at a time on pre-deployment exercises and things like that. And, we'd be living in the dirt, we'd be patrolling every day, we'd be eating rations, we'd only have one shower, every month or something like that. And, long nights of no sleep and, just running on fumes, man. So, yeah, I've been in some pretty shitty situations. So it's definitely set me up for getting through this. I will say, however, a lot of the feelings and what people are going through at the moment are a lot of the same things that veterans have actually faced once they got out of the military. They lose their self-identity, they lose their purpose. They have no drive, no direction. And I mean, I got out of the army in 2012, and I kind of floated around for a little bit, and I stopped getting out of bed in the morning when the alarm went off. I stopped shaving, I stopped exercising, I stopped doing the standard operating procedures that and the habits and the routines that I built over those years that have made me such a good soldier. And I ended up floating through life for a little bit, and I kind of lost my way. And I was like, "Fuck, who am I? What am I bringing to the world? What am I contributing to society?" And once I realized that, I started repurposing those standard operating procedures and restructuring them to allow me to, focus on the things that were important to me, that did allow me to be the best person. So many lessons there, man.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Was there any particular, like for isolation, for times when we've got more time on our hands than what we used to? Obviously, mind control, like you said, is a big part of it, and controlling what you can control. But control your mind and control your thoughts is easy. It's hard to do in practice. Do you have any tips for people that you picked up during your time there, or that you've learned along the way for doing that?
Great observation, firstly, mate. At the end of the day, it comes down to conditioning. Like I said, we were operating on standard operating procedures in the army, so it didn't matter. I'd have before I went snipers, we were working in 10-man sections. So within a section, we'd have standard operating procedures. If this happens, we do that. If that happens, we do this. Like, everyone knew what the drills were right across the board for every single scenario that came up. So it didn't matter if I moved platoons or moved sections, or we got a new guy into the section. Everyone knew what the standard operating procedure was, and that was our habits, that was our drills, that was our routines, and that's what allowed us to follow our drills, follow our instincts, and our training once the shit hit the fan. So I think it really comes down to creating your environment. You're a product of your environment, but you also create your environment.
Yeah, powerful.
So you gotta structure in the things that are important to you, and then you got to be disciplined enough to do that. You just got to condition yourself to do that. An example of this is, for me, I'm not sure if you're the same, man, but I've spoken to a lot of people who come from a military background or an athletic background that just want to get after it every single time they train. Yeah, so for me, it takes me more discipline to not train. Yeah, when I'm 100%. Run down, when I'm tired, when I'm fucked, So it's just identifying your strengths and your weaknesses, and then working within them. And progressive overload is a big one as well. Another example is when people want to make some changes, they want to lose some weight, they want to build some muscle, improve athletic performance, or whatever. They throw everything in at once. That's not the way to do it. That's not sustainable, man. At the end of the day, it's all about consistency over the long term rather than short-term intensity.
Yeah, awesome. That's powerful stuff, man. It's funny because talking about the exercise side of things, I mean, I've always trained. I mean, don't get me wrong, you train for your physical appearance and you train to be fit and healthy, but the major component of my training since I was a teenager has always been for mental health. I've always used it as a tool to strengthen myself daily. Like, I like getting up and training and doing something hard and knowing that I've done something hard and that I've pushed myself, and I find that sets me up. I've also got through a lot of the adversities in my life, whether it's business failures or losing friends, sick family members, whatever it is, by training my way through it. And I've found myself having to hold back from training at the moment in isolation. Number one, from boredom, but number two, it's just so good to reset the mind. Talk to me about the mental side of training for you. Is that the same for you? I know that you this is your passion and this is your obsession, but how much of it for you is about setting yourself up mentally?
Mate, that was a brilliant reflection, and I absolutely agree. And one of the things that I want to make a point about is what you said about, for you, training is building that mental capacity, and you're essentially conditioning yourself. If you think about the world that we live in these days, we have everything at the touch of our fingertips. We live in these homes with regulated temperatures, and we've got all the clothes to deal with whatever the temperature is outside, and we've got fucking heated seats in our cars and shit like that. So people just don't know how to be uncomfortable these days. We've evolved, and our generation has grown up being comfortable. People just don't know how to be uncomfortable now, and people don't know how to be with their own thoughts. They don't know how to sit by themselves and not have technology and be distracted by all this other shit that's going on in their lives. So for me, in this day and age, man, training is one of those things that you can really take advantage of and condition yourself to that adversity and build that mental toughness and that physical fitness, and push yourself to your limits and see what you're capable of.
100%. Yeah, that it's fun. It is funny because I think it'll be interesting to see when we, like you say, go back to normal life after all of this, whatever that looks like. It will be interesting to see whether there is a big shift in values and the way that people go about things, because I've been looking at the people that have been through the most adversity are the people that are thriving right now, in my experience.
Yeah. Yep.
The people that have dealt with tough times. And then, because I've seen people that are in really shitty situations at the moment who are thriving. And I've seen people who have millions of dollars in the bank and very little to worry about who are panicked and stressed.
That's that mindset, bro.
Yeah. No, it is.
It goes back to that mindset, man. And that's the thing. Once you condition yourself, that growth mindset is about, right, I'm going to adapt and overcome to whatever the fuck the situation is. That fixed mindset is, I'm this person. I am a CEO of, a big company, and I've got millions of dollars in the bank. But once I lose that, what else have I got?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. You've read the book. This is something that you know more about than me. For people out there listening now who come across this, who feel like they are in that fixed mindset, what are some steps that they can take to shift towards a growth mindset?
I think the first point would be, again, going back to having a look at the person in the mirror and asking yourself some hard questions. Who am I? What do I want to achieve? Set some goals. And then you got to put the processes in place. So, and again, one step at a time. You don't have to do everything at once, but just choose one thing that you want to work on. It might be growth. It might be development. It might be, shifting direction, taking your business in a different direction. It might be spending more time with family. For every single person, their values are going to be different. And, we look at all of the different components of life, man. You've got your relationships, social, and what's the word I'm looking for? Romantic, social and romantic.
Yeah.
Then you've got finances. You've got your growth, your development, your career, physical fitness, mental health. There's so many different aspects of life. So you need to have a look at what those things are and what's the most important to you, and then start investing time and energy into it. That might be something as simple as reading books, listening to podcasts, doing some online courses, whatever it is. But you've just got to put one foot in front of the other and start moving, man. Here's the thing. Like, so many people are stuck because they don't know which direction to go. We live in this world of information where all the fucking information that we have is at our fingertips, but there's so much information, it's paralysis by analysis. People don't know where to go, so the people that are thriving are those that figure shit out on the way. Go like us, man. We're starting this podcast. I don't know shit about a podcast, but I just bought all the equipment when I was at home on a recent trip, and I was like, I'm just going to start playing around with this. I'm just going to start recording some content. I'll start practicing my craft. It might be shit to start with, and it is shit. I was listening to some stuff last night, and I was like, oh, that's rubbish. I need to redo that. And I was like, no, fuck that. Leave it, man. That was who you are at that time. Leave it in there. That's authentic. That's the truth. So figure out the direction that you want to be moving in, and then choose one thing per day to do that's going to move you in the right direction.
That's right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, in saying that, talking about the podcast, we are doing this on the fly. I hope all this is recording and working. But I think a big aspect of it as well is just understanding that the human ability to adapt is crazy. Like, we can learn anything. Like for example, take podcasting. We look at people get paralyzed because they look at people who are at the top of the podcasting game and they're like, oh, he's amazing and he knows how to do that and I don't. But it's like, that guy didn't come out of the womb knowing how to podcast, in the same way that you didn't come out of the womb knowing everything you know about nutrition and training and mindset and athletic performance. And I think if I was to reflect on that, I think people just look at their current skill set and don't believe in their ability to change. I don't know whether that comes back to work ethic and just not having that commitment, or they've let themselves down so much in the past and they haven't progressed in anything, so they have no belief that they're going to do it. But a big part of it has to be just understanding that, like, nobody out there who's doing anything great was born with it. That is all developed and learnt skill. That's all growth that's happened over a lifetime, right?
Like we said before, mate, conditioning. Got to condition yourself.
That's right, bro.
I've conditioned myself to failing time and time again. So, am I nervous about putting out a podcast? Am I nervous about how people are going to perceive it? Yeah, a little bit. I'm a little bit anxious about it, but then I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, man. Like, the people that are going to listen are going to listen. They're going to be my fans. If they don't want to listen, I don't really care. There's no skin off my nose. At the end of the day, I'm doing something that I enjoy, that I think is going to bring people a lot of value. And that's what matters, man. It doesn't matter how it's perceived. If I can only help one person, if one person messages in after I've launched and I've been running for 2 months, one person messages in and says, hey, thank you so much, you've helped make a massive impact in my life, then I don't give a fuck. That's worth it.
Oh, totally, man. Totally. Hey, let's go back. Let's go all the way back, because I think you said you're a product of your environment was one thing that you've mentioned a couple of times. I know that you've had quite an adverse upbringing. You've got a lot of stuff from when you were young, your childhood, which has, you faced a lot of adversity, but in a way that set you up to do and achieve all the things you have done. Can we rewind it all the way back to the start so that people get a bigger perspective and a picture of what your upbringing was like and sort of where you've come from?
Yeah, sure thing, mate. So I left home when I was 14. My stepdad was abusive. I came from a poor family. I was kind of getting caught up with the wrong people and going down the wrong path, and I was stealing and doing drugs and shit like that. So I realized that, I had to get out and had to forge my own path. Otherwise, I was basically just going to, turn into my stepdad. So I left home at 14, moved to Darwin, stayed up there for a couple of years, was laboring for a couple of years. My mates, or the guys that I knew, were going to school, and I was, going and slinging fucking concrete bags and driving forklifts and shit. I actually got my forklift license before I got my car license. Pretty crazy. I don't even know how that's legal, but whatever. So yeah, stayed in Darwin for a couple of years. I was actually working at the rugby as a caterer. I was serving hot dogs and fucking Chico rolls and stuff. Hey, can I swear? Is that all right?
Yeah, go for gold, man.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, if you cut that out, man, that limits my vocabulary. So anyway, I was working as a caterer at the rugby, and I just went up to a random dude, and I was like, hey, mate, what game is this? Because I grew up playing rugby league. And he goes, oh, this is rugby union. Bring your boots down tomorrow. I was like, I don't have any boots. He goes, well, bring your runners, whatever you've got. So I rolled in the next day and had some games, and yeah, had a lot of fun. And then within 6 months, I was representing the Northern Territory in the schoolboys competition. And then the following year got selected in the combined states team, which was the best players of Northern Territory, Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. So I went to Sydney, played in schoolboys competition down there against against New South Wales, Queensland, ACT. Got picked up by a scout, offered a scholarship in Sydney. Went there for a couple of years. Got offered a gig and a small contract to stay there once I went from Colts to seniors. But I had a couple of injuries and decided I actually wanted to go and join the army, which is what I was going to do before I got the contract in Sydney. So yeah, I left Sydney, moved back to Darwin, joined the army with one of my best mates. We didn't know how long that was going to take, so I lived with him and we worked together and trained together and rode motorbikes together, went out on the piss together, had a heap of fun. And then like 2 months later, we both got in the army. I think I got in maybe 2 or 3 weeks before him, went through to Kapuka, did my basic recruit training, sent to Singleton in a holding platoon for about 5 to 6 weeks, and then got sent to Darwin. We had a 3-month course up there, which was super intensive. We just got absolutely hammered. And then after that, we marched out and were told that we were deploying to Iraq within 7 to 8 months. So started ramping up training for that. Went to Iraq for 6 months. got back. Was only back for about 9 months, I think, and then went to East Timor for 8 months. And then about a year, maybe 15 months after that, I went to Afghanistan. Discharged from the army 2012, met a girl, moved down to Tasmania with her. We were together 5 years, awesome chick, had a great time there, but we're going in different directions. We had different values at the time, so I had to, have an adult conversation about that and discuss where we're both going. And I decided that I wanted to move over to Thailand and put myself in a position to take any opportunities that present themselves if something did come up. I came over as an intern, where I basically worked for 2 months. I had a 2-month contract. After a month, they offered me a full-time job, and then 5 to 6 months later, I got the head coaching gig, and I've been here ever since. So, yeah, that's it in a nutshell, mate.
That was epic. Going back to the early, I'm fascinated in the early stages. I know I've seen you put up stuff saying, like some of the time you were living in a tent with your family, stuff like that, like, couldn't afford the trainers, like, some coming from a decent state of poverty from what it sounded like. How much of your drive and ambition was forged early?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, but it's also difficult to answer because there were times when, maybe I was in that fixed mindset where I was like, well, I've got nothing going on in my life and I'm fucking never going to escape this. So, I'm stuck now, so I may as well just crack on and go hard and steal shit and do drugs and, whatever. But then I realized that I was going down the wrong path, and that's something that I didn't want to do. And I wanted to become the man that my stepdad wasn't, because I was following in his footsteps. And I was like, right, I can either take this as a role model for good or a role model for bad. And I decided that, all the things that he stood for and who he was and things like that, those weren't going to be part of my traits,
It's powerful, man.
Yeah, so I had to get out and I had to figure shit out on the way, man. I lived in tent for about 6 months. My family lived in a small town in southeast Queensland, and my stepdad and I moved to this property of 30 acres that didn't have anything on it. There was no nothing. It was just trees, man. So we moved there, lived in a tent for about 6 months as we laid the foundation. Put up posts and built walls and put a roof on and things like that. And then the rest of the family moved up. So we didn't have any electricity or running water for 6 years of my life, from 7 until 13 or something like that. So yeah, so that was the sort of stuff that kind of set me up for moving forward. It put me in a good position to excel in the army, and then also, that also set me up and built the foundation for then excelling once I got out of the army as well.
Are you grateful for that then? And in that case, when you look back on it now, is that something that you have a lot of gratitude for, that hardship?
Definitely, man. Yeah, I mean, I hated it at the time. I would get teased and bullied at school for being a blocky. Like I said, we didn't have any running water for 6 years of our life. So we wouldn't actually fucking bathe every day. We didn't have a shower or anything like that. We had a bathtub that we'd set up on some rocks, and we'd light a fire under it to warm the water up, and the whole family would roll through like every 3 days or something and like bathe in the same water and things like that. So, I'd get teased for that sort of stuff at school, and I hated it at the time. Never had any money to, go to birthday parties and things like that. But man, I look back and I really appreciate that now, because I have built the person that I am, the lifestyle that I have, coming from those times, and it's really given me an appreciation for everything that I do have.
When you said that you decided that you weren't going to follow in your stepfather's or your father's footsteps, was there a pivotal moment where you were like, hang on a minute, or was that a series of events? Is there anything that stood out to you? Like, was there a certain event where shit just hit when you just had enough and you're like, whoa, I've got to sort this out? Or was that something that just gradually happened and you just sort of slowly went in a different direction?
There was a pivotal moment, but there was a lot of things that built up to that pivotal moment. So that pivotal moment was like the last straw. So basically we'd like I said, my stepdad was abusive. He hit me, hit my mum, threatened to kill her, and cut her up in little pieces and things like that. He was a fucking piece of work, man. But anyway, I was 13, 14. We just moved from that property in Tara, and we moved up to a place called Collinsville in North Queensland. And I'd been there. We'd only been there for about a year. I had a good start in the place. You know, we pretty much rolled in and had the athletics carnival and things like that. So I ended up becoming age champion there and made a heap of friends and had a completely different change to my, my previous friendships and circle. So I was kind of a popular kid there, and then kind of didn't get caught up with the wrong people, but was associated with some of those people. And one day the police came around and knocked on the door, and my stepdad came out the back and was like, "Fucking cops are here. What have you done?" And I'm like, "I haven't done anything." So I've walked out the front, had a chat to the cops, and they basically accused me of breaking into, the golf club or something like that and stealing a heap of shit. And I was like, "I haven't done anything." Anyway, the cops left, and I said, "Look, you can take my fingerprints and you can dust and do whatever." I was like, "I wasn't there. It was not me." Anyway, they left, and my stepdad beat the shit out of me because he didn't believe me. And I was fucking bawling my eyes out, and I was like, "I'm going to go to the police." And he's like, "You fucking go to the police, I'll kill you." So yeah, that was kind of the pivotal moment, man. And I was within probably 2 months, I was gone.
All right, man. That is crazy. It's hard for a lot of people to comprehend. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. As I can see the connection now, like between how far you've come and all your achievements and your mindset and your determination and stuff. But that's quite a story. Let's go to the military.
I don't think I've actually told that story before.
Oh, there. Well, thank you. No, I mean, this is the stuff that we need to get out in these kind of conversations, man. I mean, people.
Oh, mate. Yeah, I agree, man.
People talk far too much about all the good stuff, and I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. And with Instagram and everything else going on, we all talk about all the good stuff and don't talk about the bad stuff. But I personally am getting to the point where I realize that there's more power in the bad stuff, or as much power and positivity in the bad stuff if you can harness it in the right way. And I think the more we share that type of information, not only does it help people who are currently going through it right now go, "Oh, well, he got out of that situation and did that, I can do that too." But it's just hopefully creates an environment where we start talking about that type of shit a bit more.
100%, man. No, I'm absolutely happy to talk about this stuff. I mean, that's something that's probably made me a little bit different to a lot of people on the social media platforms, is that I do talk about this shit, man. I do talk about my life, and some people enjoy it and get a lot out of it, and some people are like, "Oh, he's just looking for sympathy." I don't give a fuck, man. I'm just sharing this stuff with the people that it's going to help. I'm not doing it for sympathy, man. I mean, I've got no, I don't have any issues with sharing my story with other people if it's going to help them.
Yeah, I've seen you. I mean, a lot of your posts have stopped me in the tracks, man, and I've read them, and they're good. I'm sure that if you're going through that right now, there's nothing more helpful than seeing that from someone who's gone on to create something of themselves. So let's go into the military, bro. Like, military stories and books and podcasts and stuff fascinate me because it's kind of the ultimate alpha scenario. You're in a situation where you're literally trying to train to become a beast. You're going into battle, literally. The mind is everything. There's super high levels of expectation and discipline, and you have to show up with courage. And you're forged into a pretty special or unique type of character. What are the greatest lessons that you took out of the military? What are the hardest times, and what are the biggest lessons that have set you up from military life?
Biggest lesson is don't take anything for granted. It can all end in an instant. Doesn't matter where you are, man. Doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be walking across a road and, get hit by a bus. Or if you're a little bit older, you might have a heart attack. One of my old footy coaches actually just had a heart attack and died recently. He wasn't too old, man, and nobody saw it coming. He was a healthy guy, lived a really healthy life, and just keeled over, and that was it, man. So that's probably one of the biggest lessons. It's an interesting situation to be in the army. It's how I kind of explain it to people about the bond that's created with the guys that you're with is that you're like, how many jobs have you had where your workmates are your best mates? You live together, you go out bush together, you work together, you go to the gym and train together, you go out and get on the piss together, you try and seduce girls together, and you go on like a 9-month deployment to Afghanistan and you're living with these guys every single day and you know the most intimate details about them. But then you get back from that deployment and you go out and get on the piss together. You hang out with them, go and have barbecues and beers on the balcony, man. You go through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows together. What other person in your life can you say that you've shared that experience with?
Yeah, very few, man, very few. What was the first deployment like? I mean, going in and doing the training initial training must have been hard, and I'm sure you get pushed and challenged and stuff. But the moment that you're told that you're flying into a war zone, talk to me about
that. First deployment was Iraq in 2007. Like I said, I joined the Army 2006 in March. Went through my initial recruit training for 3 months and then was in holding platoon for about a month and a half, and then went through IET's initial employment training for about 3 months as well. So I had probably close to 7.5 to 8 months going through that training. As soon as we marched out of our training and into the battalion, we got word that we were going to Iraq. So a lot of our section commanders, the dudes that were in control of our sections, our platoons, they'd already been to Iraq. They'd already had a deployment there, so they knew what it was all about and what it was like. So they pretty much took charge and shaped the training that we went through for the next, it would have been 7 or 8 months before we went to Iraq, which I'm really grateful for and I really appreciate because they'd been on the ground. They knew what they'd gone through their SOPs and they'd gone through after action reviews and discussed what worked and what didn't work. And then they passed those lessons on to us when we went over. So I was really grateful for that opportunity to be able to work under those guys as my leaders and as my mentors. But I think another thing that came into play was the mindset of people. You could tell with different people, they had different mindsets. And for some people, it was, I don't know if they realized that they were going into a war zone and they didn't have the correct mental preparation. And a lot of the times these are the same people that have struggled with some anxiety and depression and things like that over the years. Is because, shit happened on deployments that you can't be ready for. But at the end of the day, like maybe they didn't set themselves up correctly mentally and physically before they went on deployments, I know before I went to Afghanistan, for example, I sat down with my 4-man sniper team, the other 3 guys, and we had a really long discussion about what was going to happen. We need to be prepared for anything. Our job, we could potentially pull the trigger. We could potentially be, dragging our mates into cover who have been shot or been killed or lost a leg from an IED or whatever. So, we had that conversation. It was honest, it was open, it was raw, and that put us in the right mindset to basically say, well, at the end of the day, I prefer not to do my job and pull the trigger if I can bring all you boys home safe. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. 2 of my boys in my 4-man sniper team got shot. We did pull the trigger. We did patch dudes up. We had guys that, were killed, unfortunately, and a lot more that were injured and things like that. But, we had to set that mindset before we went over there. Otherwise, going over there and hoping for the best was not a really good strategy. So, hopefully that tied everything in for you.
100%, man. Was that in that circumstance that you were talking about there, where a couple of guys got killed? Was that when you was that the situation where you were given the commendation for gallantry?
I was awarded that. So let me tell you a little bit of a story about that. So we'd been in country for only 2 weeks, and we were just doing the handover with 6RR. They were there before us. So we had a couple of partner patrols where they took us out and they showed us the grounds and, where all the dodgy areas were and, where all the good people were and key areas of interest and things like that. And once they got on the Chinook to fly out, we went out on our first solo patrol, and our sniper team got ambushed. My team leader was hit. Had to return fire, drag him into cover, follow through, etc., etc. So that was one time. That was 2 weeks after we got into country, and then the second time was my stand-in team leader was shot as well a couple of months later. So basically same thing, just had to return fire, drag him to cover, apply a tourniquet, patch him up, put him on a helicopter. So I was nominated for the Commendation for Gallantry for those two situations in particular. But when I got back from Afghanistan, I'd actually been in contact with one of our OCs, one of the guys that were higher up the chain of command, and he was a big rugby head, and he was part of the rugby mafia. And he was like, dude, you need to get in contact with this guy here. He's the coach of the Australian Defence Force team, blah, 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 blah. So I got in contact with him, and there was a trial match when I got back from Afghanistan down in Canberra. So while the other boys were going out and getting on the piss and, spending all their deployment money and having fun and, having a month or two off, I had some time off, but I really got stuck into footy training, got into the gym and, wanted to make the Australian Defence Force rugby team. So I really committed to that. Flew down to Canberra, had a trial match, had a bit of a blinder, got selected for the team, and then went away for 2 months to Sydney, Canberra, and then over to New Zealand to play in the Defence Force Rugby World Cup. But when I got back from that, once I got back from that trip, I had a letter in the mail saying, you've been nominated for the Commendation for Gallantry. Can you please reply to us whether you accept or not by this time? And that date had already passed because I'd been away for 2 months. So anyway, I called my mates up and I was like, hey boys, I'm just letting you know that I've been nominated for this. I don't agree with it. I'm not going to accept it, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, why would you not accept it? I'm like, well, it was a team effort. I didn't fucking do anything special. I didn't do anything that you boys didn't do. I was just Johnny on the spot, and I had to do my job, man. I had to let my training take over and do what had to be done in those circumstances. And they're like, fair call, accepted on behalf of all of us. And I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. So anyway, I ended up getting in contact with Government House and asking them what the deal was and if I could still accept the award. And they said, yeah, no worries. So I had a big investiture at Government House in Darwin and was awarded the Commendation for Gallantry on behalf of Governor General of Australia. So, yeah, one of the prouder days of my life.
I bet, man. I bet. I did some research on it before I jumped on with you, and I think the last one that was awarded was 2015. So they're not just giving out.
I actually didn't know those numbers that you said before. You said there was only 68 awarded in Australia. I was like,
68 awarded in Australia, and 20 of those were given at one time to prisoners of war. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool, man. It's amazing. Going back to when you're talking, like you talk so casually about it, and then, there was fire and we were hit, and just had to drag them out, chuck them in a helicopter. As if it's like, I know
what happened, bro. It's just what happened.
It's just what happened. Is there fear in those moments? Do you have time to process anything, or is it so automatic by that point?
A little bit of both. I've done a post. I've shared a post a few times about the mindset that I had to have going out on patrol. I mean, when the shit hits the fan, then it's instinct, man. That's when your training kicks in. And I'm so grateful for, being fucking smashed on the basics over and over and over again by my teammates and, my colleagues and my commanders and things like that. Because at the end of the day, like, the basics save lives. But that was in the heat of the moment. That's when the instinct takes over and the training takes over. But there were obviously a lot of times where we're out on patrol and, your mind would start playing tricks on you. Your mind was running free. And, there were times where I could feel us getting channeled into certain areas where the Taliban would place IEDs that were looking to, fucking take our legs off or kill us from a distance without them actually getting involved in a firefight. So, there was a lot of times where I'd be patrolling along, and I was the point man for my sniper team, and I'd be patrolling along, and I could see the terrain in front of me that was channeling us towards a certain point, and I was like, "Whoa, I'd be putting something there if I was a bad dude." So I'd have to choose an appropriate route that would negate that threat. And my worst fear was not that I would make a mistake and fucking step on IED and lose my legs or my life. It was that I'd make a mistake and the bloke behind me would take the brunt of the explosion or take a round in the chest or something like that. So that was always in the back of my mind, man. But again, you can only control what's within your control, and that was my job, was to select an appropriate route that was going to negate those very real threats.
Have you?
And it was always in the back of my mind that, you know, this could be my last step on two legs, or I might be taking my last breaths, and that was something that I had to deal with on a daily basis. And to be honest, man, it fucking ruined me for the first couple of weeks. Like, I couldn't sleep. You know, I was struggling. The fear was real. The anxiety was real. I didn't know, you know, where the next threat was coming from or what it was going to look like. So, you know, I had to manage my mind, and that literally started with doing some breath work and what I now know is meditation, but I didn't know what it was back then. I was like, man, I'm fucking not sleeping. I'm waking up tired. I'm just foggy. I'm not feeling sharp, and you know, I'm a liability. That's just going to increase my my chances of actually making those same mistakes that I was worried about making. So I was like, what can I do? And I didn't know anything else. And I was like, right, just focus on your breathing. So every night I'd go to bed, I'd literally just sit there and like take a deep breath in, long breath out, one. And I would do that until I fell asleep. Some nights it was easier than others. Other nights it was very difficult. But, you know, over a couple of days of doing that and building that habit and conditioning myself to do that, then, you know, my mind started settling down and I started getting to sleep, and I actually started having restful sleeps, and I was waking up, you know, feeling refreshed and feeling sharp and going, all right, let's fucking go. Let's go out and let's get this, you know? Wow. So it was funny, man, because one of my mates was in the army as well. And once he got out, he had a few issues with anxiety and depression, things like that. And he ended up doing yin yoga to help him get through that PTSD and use it as an alternate therapy to drugs and medicine. And he's now become a yoga teacher. And it wasn't until years and years later when I was telling him that story, he paused me mid-sentence and he goes, dude, you've been meditating for years. You just didn't know it. So it's crazy, man. Like so now I implement like a little bit of meditation into my day. And it's one of those things, you look at people say meditation, it's like, oh, it's this fucking woo-woo shit. Dude, at the end of the day, like meditation is literally just switch off to the external, focus on the internal. You know, our minds are constantly running free. What if, and what about that? And fucking all of these crazy scenarios that may or may not happen, that adds stress. You know,
totally,
man. A shitload of stress, and that's what creates anxiety and depression. You know, so just doing a little bit of breath work, mindfulness, meditation, fucking call it whatever you want, man. Like, I've found that so beneficial, and I notice the difference when I don't do it. And that meditation or mindfulness, breath work, whatever, could literally be just walking down to the beach and sitting there with your toes in the sand and the sun on your face and, you know, the wind in your hair, listening to the waves roll in. Doesn't matter what it is, man. I do the same thing when I go scuba diving. It's very therapeutic for me. You know, I'm literally just 30 meters underwater, just breathing through a tube, and I can't focus on anything else because then, you know, I can't impact my buoyancy.
Oh, mate, I can't agree more. Like, meditation's not woo-woo. It's some Yoda shit, really. It's like even over the last couple of weeks, it's something that I go in and out of. Like, I go through phases of it. I do try and do it as regularly as I can. But even when I'm not meditating as such, I'll do things like the 6-6-6 exercise. So 6-second breath in, 6-second hold, 6-second breath out. Since I was in Thailand, actually, I got really into Wim Hof. And find that that's just like tremendous for any anxiety or anything that comes on. Like, if I feel myself starting to get anxious and my mind's running, I'll usually just go straight to the Wim Hof breathing, and, you know, 3 or 4 minutes, maybe chuck a few press ups in, and I've got a completely new state.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's just, like you said, that's just changing that state. It's just being aware of what state you're in and then going, all right, this is not where I want to be. That's where I want to be over there. How am I going to get there? And then the tools, doesn't matter what the tool is. You know, you could use some Wim Hof breathing. I might use some box breathing. Someone else might literally just put on some meditation music, or they might even put on some fucking heavy rock or something like that. You know, and music's actually a really good way of changing your state of mind. You know, you walk into a gym, you know, you're hitting a 1 rep max. You know what playlist you're putting on.
Yeah, 100%.
You know,
man.
Likewise, if you're going into a yin yoga class where you're focusing on stress management and recovery and breath work, you're not going to be listening to that same playlist. You're going to be listening to something a lot more chilled, So I think understanding where you're at, where your head's at, what mindset you're in, and then realizing whether that's where you want to be or not what you want to be, and then going, right, this is not where I want to be. This is where I want to be. How do I get there? And then using those different tools.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so valuable for people right now. I know a lot of people are probably not even aware of the benefit of it. I think I did a Brendan Bouchard course probably 3 or 4 years ago now, and he just took in the physiology section. It was just a whole bunch of stuff about breathing, and it just brought my awareness back to most people just don't breathe in general. Like everyone's going through life with really shallow breathing, never oxygenating their body, and that's where the anxiety and that comes from. And so it's the most simplest thing that you can possibly do, and it's just very rarely done.
100%, man. If anyone that's listening right now, if they want to test this, here's 2 very simple ways of testing what sort of state your breath work gets you into. Option 1, hyperventilate for a minute. See what happens to your heart rate. See what happens to your muscles. See what happens to your mindset. Option 2, breathe deeply. See how many breaths it's going to take you to get through that 1 minute, and try and reduce that number of breaths to get through. You might be looking at 3 to 4 to 5 breaths over that minute. Puts you in a completely different state, man.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Just quickly, who's been taught how to breathe?
Exactly. Never. Like I said, until I did the Brendan Bouchard high performance course, I'd never paid any attention to it. I never even thought about it.
Who knows about nutrition? Who learns about nutrition? You could ask 10 people, random people, like, hey, give me 10 good foods, and they'd be able to name them. Give me 10 bad foods, they'd be able to name them. All right, what about exercise? We learn about exercise. We learn about health. We learn about, all of these other beneficial aspects, but we don't learn about breathing. We can only live 4 minutes without oxygen, 4 days without water, 40 days without food, and 40 plus years without exercise. What do you think people focus on, bro?
When you put it like that, that's one of the stupidest things that we don't pay any attention to that.
No, exactly, man.
Right, there you go. If you're listening to this, you've been told, go and do your breathing. I'm going to actually try that technique because it is so interesting. Like I catch myself with it now because it becomes mind muscle thing. And as soon as I start to feel anything like that, I naturally go towards it because I've sort of trained myself to do that now. But man, it's powerful stuff for now.
Mate, that's a good point. Like, how did you train yourself to do that? This is an important thing for people to take away. How did you train yourself to do that?
Yeah, I to be honest, as part of that course, the initial things was to set triggers for just reminding yourself to do it. So things that you were commonly doing over the course of the day. Let's take that, like you stand in a line. How many times a day on average do you stand in line? It's probably at least 5 or 10 times a day. And so it was just building triggers around, like, every time you stand in a line, take 6 or 10 big deep breaths. Or every time you hop in the car, take 5 or 6, 10 deep breaths. And you do that for a week, and every time you go to stand in a line or hop in the car, you start doing stuff. It's like when people are trying to build confidence. Well, a lot of that comes from the way that you carry yourself for a start. And, if you stand up tall, pull your shoulders back, head up, and walk tall, you start to feel more confident than what you did before. It's that same sort of thing. It's building those triggers, and rather than just saying, "Oh, I'm going to create this habit," and then having no system for creating the habit. It's all about having the systems in place. You want to be more confident. Every time you walk through a door frame, pull your head up, lift your shoulders back, walk with some pride. And every time you do that over the space of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all of a sudden you're walking around like a more confident person. And so for me, with the breathing, that was part of it. It was just creating a system to implement it into your life.
Exactly, mate. There's a difference between goals and systems. A goal is where you want to get to. Your systems or your structures are the roadmap to get you there. And what you just said there is absolutely brilliant. Something is always better than nothing. And adding that trigger of every time I walk through a door, I'm going to stand up tall, I'm going to focus on my posture. That's not taking anything out of your day. That's just implementing something into your day. You don't need an hour to meditate or to go through these processes that, you want to put into place that's going to allow you to be your best person. You just need to implement them into your day. So my breath work that I do now, my pool and my sauna's closed at my place now because of this situation. But before that, my morning routine would be to get up and go to the pool and swim. And I wasn't swimming for exercise; I was swimming for technique because I suck at swimming. So I wanted to get better at swimming. And for me, that intent of focusing on my technique really allowed me to focus on my breath, because obviously if my breath was off, then my technique was off. So I'd only swim 6 to 10 laps, and then I'd get out, and then I'd go and sit in the sauna, and I'd sit there and I'd breathe, and I'd take, somewhere between 20 to 50 breaths, and then I'd have a stretch after that. So I'm not going out of my way to do this stuff. I'm simply just implementing it into my day.
Yeah, that's right. And once you feel the benefits of it, you start to naturally pick up on when you need it, and then you just do it without needing those cues. How much do you? Let's fast forward to what you do now, because your big, your passion and your work right now is around, training professional athletes. You're the head strength and conditioning coach at Tiger Muay Thai, which is one of the top, or the top destination gym in the world, and one of the top martial arts gyms in the world. You're in a very high performance environment there, and you're dealing with, the elite level athletes. How do you implement that kind of stuff with them? Breath work, mindset, like, talk to me about the training and what you're doing for a job at the moment.
Yeah, I do implement that stuff, but again, it's not, an hour's session where we're just focusing on that stuff. Again, I just implement that into my training session, man. So at the start of the session, like Peter Yan's my main man. He's currently ranked number 3 or 4 in the UFC bantamweight division. And I've been working with him for 2 years now. And something that I do with him is, here's the thing, man. Like, if you look at these professional athletes and, military and, high achievers, they get after everything they do, So for him, he's training 2 to 3 times a day, and he's hammering himself in these other training sessions. So for me, I'm thinking about balancing his autonomic nervous system. So your autonomic nervous system is the balance between your parasympathetic, rest and digest, and your sympathetic, which is fight or flight. So the two completely different physiological states. The sympathetic state, fight or flight, is essential for short-term survival. And the parasympathetic state is essential for long-term survival. So balancing these out is what's going to allow people to recover and then adapt from their training sessions, because we don't adapt from our training. We provide the stimulus, and then we need to pull ourselves into a safe space of the parasympathetic nervous system, where your body can actually rehydrate a lot quicker when it gets water. It can break down its food. The digestive system can do its thing to break down the food into its raw materials to provide the energy and the resources to all of the other systems of the body. That's when we make gains, man. So for me, my job really is, people think that I hammer my clients, and yes, I'm going to fucking get after it sometimes, but I need to have a look at everything else that's going on in their life. My coaching philosophy is, if I'm not affecting my clients outside of that 1 hour training session, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah.
So I'll get someone like Peter Yan walk in who's might be, I train him Tuesday and Thursday morning. So he might walk in on a Thursday morning and he's fucking tired, man. He's already done, 10 to 12 sessions this week, and he's got after every other session because every other coach that he's working with is pushing him, smashing him into the ground, So he walk into a session and I'll see what's going on. I'll have a chat to him, and I can see by his body language. You said before, your body language plays a big part on your mindset and vice versa. So I'm watching his body language. Is he dragging his feet? Is his head down? I'll ask him some questions, and fighters and these high level athletes and high achievers, they won't tell you when they're tired. So I'm using these tools, my balance and stability warm up drills as my assessment. He doesn't need to tell me shit, man. His balance is fucking awesome. So if I can see that he's a little bit wobbly and he's all over the place, then hey, I know that something's going on. I know he's tired. His central nervous system's probably a little bit fatigued, and he's in this highly driven sympathetic state, right? So I need to pull him back. I'm going to focus on. So my job's not. Yes, my job is to make him better, but my job is to do enough to elicit the right response without hammering him and get into his fight injury free.
Totally.
So that means sometimes I need to pull him back, and I'm focusing more on the rest, the recovery, the mobility, activation work, postural, working on postural muscles and joint integrity and things like that. So yes, we're going to be doing some speed, power, strength, conditioning based work, but sometimes like that might be 20 minutes worth of work, and the other 40 minutes is all about setting the standard and working through the mobility and working on structural integrity and activation work and all that sort of stuff, and then when we go into the heavy hard work, then we're looking at building the mindset. But it's about balancing everything out, man. You've got to look at the person that's in front of you, and yes, I've got a program and a structure that I follow, but I need to be super flexible with it and adjust on the fly.
Yeah, it's interesting because Peter's a great example because he's gone from, has he been in the UFC 18 months, something like that? He's gone from being non-ranked, having his first fight to, he probably have a title shot in his next fight or next one or two. And if his previous performances and what I've seen of him are anything to go by, he'll probably win it.
He's a beast.
Yeah, what makes him a beast? Like, training and programming and stuff aside, what's different about that guy compared to some of the other athletes that you've worked with?
They've all got that mindset. They've all got that, like, get in, go hard, get after it mindset. Does that make him special? Yes, but does it make him different? No. What's different with him is he is an athlete. He's an all-round athlete, man. Like, he's the sort of dude that could probably pick up any sport and invest time, energy, and effort into it, and he's going to fucking dominate, man.
Is that natural, or is that because he has focused on becoming such a well-rounded athlete?
I think it's a little bit of both. There's obviously some genetics there, but he has been training for a long time, and he took up boxing as a young child and went through that path for a long time before he transitioned to MMA. So, he's been in the game for a long time, and he's developed those skills. And but again, played a lot of different sports when he was a child and developed multiple athletic capacities.
Yeah, right.
Which then builds a really solid foundation to then be able to specialize. Here's the thing, man. A lot of people will go into the gym and they see fucking LeBron James doing these trick shots and all of these skills and drills, and people go, sweet, I'm just going to do that. If that's good enough for LeBron, that's good enough for me. Well, hang on a second. The dude's been playing basketball for fucking 25, 30 years. He didn't just pick the ball up and start doing that shit. He built the foundation, and he put in a lot of time, effort, energy, and reps and consistency, time after time after time after time, to get to that place where now he can actually start doing these specific skills and drills.
Yeah,
that's then going to take his game to the next level. You've got to have the foundation first.
Yeah, 100%, and that's such a key point across the board. Not just with top level athletes, but anyone who's going in to improve their health and fitness stuff. I've heard you talk about that before. Obviously, Tiger is an interesting split because you're dealing with a lot of professional athletes who are at the top of their game, but then you're also accommodating for everyday people who are there to transform their health and their life. Let's talk. Now is the better time than ever for people. They're stuck at home. They can't eat takeaways. They've got no distractions. If there was ever a time to be getting after your health and fitness, now is the time. And it's one of those things that people struggle to make meaningful change with. You've coached and trained thousands of people. You're very effective at what you do. For the person that's sitting at home at the moment and has been talking about their health and fitness goals, what are the steps that they should take to get after it and get some serious results and go about things in the right way?
Just get started. That's the whole point, man. Just get started. Like I said earlier, you don't need an hour a day to train, to dedicate to training. Okay, just implement some things into your day that's going to benefit you. I was recently on a 6-week trip where I went to Japan, went to Bali, went home, saw my family, and then I was on yoga course for 2 weeks. We're doing 14-hour days, man. 6 o'clock in the morning till fucking 8 o'clock at night. They were massive days. We'd get a half an hour break here and there throughout the day, and then an hour's lunch break. So for me, my training was literally 10 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day. I'd throw a kettlebell around. I'd do some bodyweight based movements. I'd get my rings out and play around on them, get a little bit of sunshine. That was it, man. I'd do that, 3 times a day. There's 30 to 40 minutes throughout the day. And that's literally what it is. And, you can use those tools that you said before. About just implementing it into your day. Every time you walk through the door, do something. Every time you open the fridge, do something. We had a rule when I was in the army. We're down the hangars, down where our officers were and where our personnel carriers were, and there was a pull-up bar in this causeway. And every time we walked under that pull-up bar, we had to knock out 5 pull-ups. So some days you'd be fucking knocking out 40, 50 pull-ups, man.
Yeah.
What do you think we got really good at?
Yeah. That's funny because I remember when I was managing the gym, and anytime we had downtime on the floor, we used to do the same thing. We'd go and have pull-up competitions, and you used to bang them out like nobody's business, eh? And actually, Steph, well, she's got an office downstairs at the moment, and during this lockdown, every single time she's had to get up to the toilet, she'll do 50 kettlebell swings, and it's just the way that she's just kept moving,
Yeah, nice, man. And that's it. That just that's just implementing it into your day. You're not doing anything different. You're just going, hey, when I do this, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really good way of doing it. But again, it comes back down to looking at what your values are, and people need to understand that they need to match their expectations with their commitment. Obviously they don't have a gym to train at. They're not going to have a shitload of equipment at home, so they shouldn't really be looking at making gains during this time. It should be about, all right, cool, I'm going to implement some small habits that are going to add up over time and make a difference. To once these restrictions are lifted, then I can start looking at putting these processes in place to make some gains.
That's some of the best advice I've heard during lockdown about health and fitness, right there.
Yeah, man. It's not about dedicating a shitload of time to it. It's about doing what you can and making sure that the time you are investing into it is doing something that's going to be beneficial for you. So for me, as an example, I probably don't spend enough time on mobility-based work. So what do you think I'm doing during this time? That's part of my morning routine. I'll get up and I'll go and have a stretch on the balcony, and then I'll just have a stretch, man. I'll have a stretch. I'll do a little bit of mobility work, and there's 10 minutes first thing in the morning. Then I'll, sit down, I'll do my breath work, and boom, there's the first 30 minutes of my day where I've already, done a couple of positive things to set me up for the day ahead. I'm being proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, I love that. What about on the nutrition side of things, man? Like these things go hand in hand, and so many people go into the gym and flog themselves, and even from a professional athlete's point of view, man, it's amazing to see how many top level athletes are not paying huge amounts of attention to the fuel that they put into their body. What advice have you got? Like, where should people start with nutrition? And I'm not just talking about from a weight loss perspective, just from a overall, like, getting the most out of your life, feeling alive. Nutrition's more than just dropping a few kilos and calories in versus calories out, but the whole industry just talks about basically that. Like, there's been a massive narrative recently about just track your calories and you're fine, but not every calorie is equal.
Mate, I cover all of this in my 7-part mini-series coming up on my podcast.
How do people get it?
I'll be launching in the next couple of weeks, so I'll make sure I send it through to you, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, good question. This is probably going to sound a little bit generic, but reduce your processed foods. I mean, that's it, man. You got to think there's nutrition engineers out there whose job it is to make this processed food highly palatable and make you want to eat more. All right. So these foods, they've got all these chemicals in them, man. If you pick up a fucking packet of Pringles, can you tell me what every ingredient is on the back of that ingredients list? No idea. All right. How many of those chemicals are actually hijacking your hormones and making you want to eat more? That's their job, man. People are getting paid to do this shit. So at the end of the day, if you're eating real, wholesome, healthy, nutritious, whole foods, you're going to be sweet. Where's the food come from? Has it come from the earth? Did it fly? Did it walk? Did it swim? Was it grown? That's it, man. If you pick up an apple from Woolworths, it doesn't have an ingredients list on it. It doesn't have a barcode. It's an apple. So at the end of the day, if you stick to that, you're going to be pretty sweet, because our body has these regulatory mechanisms within it that tell you when you're full. If you're eating real wholesome foods, your body is going to say, all right, cool, I've had enough. Right? You finish a good Sunday roast and someone pulls out the ice cream, you're going to fit some more in, right? Why is that? Because it hijacks those hormones, hijacks those sensors. But if someone pulls out, another piece of lamb, you're like, no, I'm pretty sweet. Thanks. I'm good.
Yeah,
there's a difference, man.
It's so true, man. Yeah. And obviously mindset's the next pillar. And how, because you're such a disciplined person, do you get frustrated training clients who don't have the same discipline when it comes to, like, people talking about really wanting a result? obviously it's not so much of an issue with the elite level guys, but with the average Joe who wants to lose weight, wants to get fit, wants to do this, but doesn't exercise the discipline needed to, stay away from those types of foods or to build those habits. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with those people? Do you have a system for trying to get people into that, or like, what's your magic formula?
Yeah, look, man, I used to get frustrated because I was like, why is it so fucking hard? Why can't this person get it and just start putting these processes in place? They're telling me they want to do this, but yet they're doing that and they're sabotaging their results. That was how I used to coach, but I've grown, and now I look at it as a challenge. Now I just speak honestly, man. And again, goes back to matching expectations with commitment. If people come to me and say, hey, I sit down, have a consultation. Yeah, my goal is to lose, 15 kilos. I want to put on 3 kilos. I want to, lose whatever, 10 kilos of fat, put on 5 kilos of muscle, blah, 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 whatever it is. All right, cool. How committed are you to that on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm a 10. All right, sweet. Are you sure about that? Yeah, I'm a 10. All right. Can you sleep for 8 hours per night? I can't really do that, blah, blah, blah. All right, you're a 9. Can you drink 3 liters of water per day? I don't really like the taste of water, blah, blah. All right, now you're an 8. Can you eat 5 servings of vegetables a day? I don't like vegetables, my family, blah, 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 blah. All right, now you're a 7. And I just keep going through that process, man. Yeah. Until we get to a point where, for the most part, people are actually at a fucking 3 or a 4. And I'm like, all right, you're expecting these results, but your commitment is only at a level 3. So you've got to expect level 3 results.
And how do people, does that come back to just having a bigger reason why? A lot of people's reason for doing it is vanity. It's not that deep seated. Does that level of urgency just come back to really like what it actually means to you?
Absolutely. If your why is strong enough, your how doesn't matter.
What is, when it comes to setting goals and a vision for yourself, I think that's incredibly important. I think that's something that's overlooked. People are in the motions of things all the time. How do people, what's your process for setting a vision for yourself? How do you decide where you're going and what direction you're taking? Because you're someone who seems very clear a lot of the time, and maybe you're not. Maybe you're acting when you're not clear and working stuff out, and you're prepared to sort of fall over and fail, which is something that you touched on. But talk to me about the importance of vision and how people can get a bit clearer on where they're going and what they want and how to sort of take control of their life.
Yeah, good question, man. I think writing things down is a big one for me. Again, it doesn't really matter what your tools are, but you need to find something that's going to allow you to, put your thoughts into words. It might be talking to someone. It might be writing things down. I'm not sure if you can see this here. Let me see if I can swing my computer around.
Yeah. Right in front of you.
They're my boards, man. My boards are on my desk, and every morning I'll get up and I'll go through my morning routine, and then I'm pulling my diary out and I'm writing the things that are important to me and I'm scheduling them in for the day. But that comes back down to values, having an understanding of what you value and what's going to allow you to bring out the best in you. Then scheduling that in. An example of this is before I go to bed at night, I have a notepad and pen by my bed. I don't use my phone. I turn my phone off at a certain time because for me, sleep is a massive priority. That comes back down to protecting my immune system and my health. So if I don't have a shitty night's sleep, then that's going to affect my whole next day. So I really try and protect the sleep, and I turn my phone off, an hour and a half before I go to bed, and then I won't touch my phone an hour and a half after I get out of bed. So anyway, I have my notepad and pen by my bed, and then at night, whilst I'm laying there, turning my technology and everything off, I might just be reading. And as thoughts come into my head, I just start jotting them down, and I might spend 15 minutes there just writing shit down. I'm not using my phone because then you start getting distracted and scrolling through social media and shit. So I go old school, and then in the morning, basically, it helps me get to sleep. It's doing a brain dump because you'll go through these processes again and again and again. I've got to call this person about a job. I've got to send this email to this person. I've got to buy some dog food, blah, blah, blah. So it's doing a brain dump, man. And then, that allows you to kind of chill out and kick off the parasympathetic nervous system so you can rest and digest. And then when I get up in the morning, I'll go through my morning routine. Then I'll pull my calendar out, and I'll start jotting down the things that are important to me. And I'll go back to the notepad from the night before, and there'll be 15 things written down, and there's 2 things that I need to get done today, and I'll just put them into my day somewhere. The other 13 things, not really a big deal. I'll just keep them written down, and when I get a chance to get to them, then I'll get to them. And the other thing is, working with your energy levels, paying attention, man. At the end of the day, like, all of this information is great information, but you need to pay attention to your energy levels. So for me, the last couple of days, I've had some really, really productive days, and I've been getting after it and creating a heap of content and doing coursework and things like that. But today I'm feeling a little bit flat. I'm not quite as sharp as I have been the last couple of days. So I'm changing my routine. I'm changing my schedule and the things that I'm getting done today to suit my energy levels. Today I'm just going to be putting my podcast together. I've already recorded the episodes, but now I've just got to start mixing and editing those podcasts and then listening back to them. So it doesn't take anywhere near as much energy as actually creating the content for the podcast. So
yeah, right.
And just paying attention to those energy levels and then allocating the time to it, man.
Yeah,
Did
that's
that answer your question? I kind of went off on a tangent then. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, no worries at all, man. No, it is. I mean, I think the time management aspect is something that's super important anyway, because if you can have all the vision in the world, but if you don't get stuff done during the day and you don't prioritize, you don't go anywhere anyway. And that's something that you are very good at. I've noted that even when we were in Phuket, is watching the way you went about your business. What impact do you strive to have on people, bro? What's the impact that you're trying to have on the world with the work you do and with the content you put out and the way you live your life?
I just want to help people, man. I came from the background that I did, and I've forged my own path, and I just want to share the lessons that I've learned throughout this time. I put out so much content on social media, free content. I do have an online coaching program, but I never push it, man. I never push it. And there's just so many things that I've learned over the years that have helped serve me become the best person that I can be. And I want to help people, put these same processes in place so they can become their best person.
Yeah,
I want to create myself as an authority in the space, someone that people look up to, respect, and trust their word. One day I might, capitalize and monetize the podcast, or start pushing my online coaching a little bit more or whatever. But right now, man, like, that's not my focus. My focus is on helping people.
What's your advice for young kids out there? I think it's so pivotal having access to good information and good mentors at a young age before you've gone down a certain life path or made certain decisions. What's your advice thinking back to young Shaun? I know you actually do write posts back to young Shaun, but what is your advice for any young person out there who's got big ambitions, who is just trying to find their way in life?
Find a mentor. Find someone, or not just a mentor, a group of mentors. Find people that you can learn from, people that, seem to have their shit together and they're doing the things that you want to do. Start asking them questions. Find out what makes them tick. Find out, those processes and structures that they have in place that allow them to be their best person. That's, if you want to do something, someone's already done it ahead of you. You need to find out what that is. You need to learn from them. That's the biggest piece of advice I can get. And again, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you.
Yeah, totally, bro. That's good advice. I think it's just so pivotal. The mentorship side of it's huge. Like, I know that times in my life when I've had people around who can shortcut the learnings for me, who can help me steer my direction making for things that I haven't done, are the times that I've made good decisions and progressed faster than anywhere else. And then the times where I've made the biggest mistakes, the times I've fucked everything up, and the times that I've been too scared to reach out to people, and I've probably been too embarrassed to ask for help. So good advice. How can people find out more about you, bro? I know you are busy online all the time. You're trying to add value through social media. Where do people get hold of you? What's the best place?
Best places are Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. My Instagram is at KOBES_PFT, at Cobes_PFT. Facebook is Performance Functional Training, and YouTube is at Performance Functional Training. I've actually been putting out a heap of content on YouTube recently. during these lockdown times, where I'm putting together training sessions for people to do at home with very limited equipment. So I've put out some sessions with one kettlebell, one band, one set of glide boards, body weight, and I've put out 3 training sessions per one piece of equipment, focusing on strength and stability, skill development, muscular endurance, speed, power, conditioning. So all of the elements of strength and conditioning.
Yeah, fantastic. Highly recommend you check him out. He's one of the best trainers that I've ever come across in my life, and I've spent more than a decade around or in the fitness industry in some way, shape, or form. Last question for you, bro. What is the definition of a life fully lived to you? What does it mean to go out there and live life to the fullest?
Living life to your fullest is about doing the things that you want to do without being restricted.
Boom.
Whether that's, hiking, whether that's traveling the world, whether that's, killing it in your career. It's doing the things that bring you purpose, bring you fulfillment, and bring you contentment.
Boom. That's a nice note to finish on. Shaun, you're an absolute legend, man. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. I'm grateful to consider you a friend and have you in my friend circle. You're someone that I follow and get a lot of inspiration from. And continue the good work, man, because you're doing a lot of good things out there.
You're too kind, brother. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, man. Look forward to chatting to you next time.